Late nights were my favorite time of day. I liked the empty halls, the darkness, no people running about like chickens with their heads cut off. It's just a job, I'd think to myself. Why do they have to get so worked up over a job? I liked how my footsteps echoed, but I also liked putting on a record or turning on the radio and letting the music play while I emptied trash cans and mopped the floors. Sometimes I'd do a little dance with the mop. Mop dances are fun. I ain't no Fred Astaire, but then again, he ain't no Wally Franks. Now, that's not to say that there weren't strange things about working late. But if old Wally knows one thing, he knows that folks like having their little secrets. Makes them feel special. Never understood that myself. What you see is what you get with me. There were secrets here in Joey Drew's studios. I ain't no fool. But I also ain't no detective. So, I just keep on my own business. Even when the new renovations started, when they'd bought up the theater next door, even when the pipes had begun making strange noises all hours, sometimes almost like some creature moaning away somewhere. It was all never mind for me. It made life interesting. New halls to keep up all swell-like, new offices, and sure, new sounds, too. Took more time to clean, though, and my muscles did ache more and more these days. The missus always said we should retire down to Florida already, but I wasn't ready yet. Not yet. Let me explain this one last time to you thick-headed lunks. I don't want to see one darn scratch on this thing when we get there. Got it? Yes, sir. Of course, sir. I overheard conversations all the time in this job. Not just by being around a corner or in the other room. No, folks sometimes seem to forget I could hear in the first place. They'd just talk or argue with me standing right there doing my job. Oh, Wally didn't mind. Folks did what they did, just like I did what I did. So, normally, I wouldn't have thought too much of any of it, but this time was a bit different. This was, well, I could have sworn that I was listening to the booming frustration of one Thomas Connor. And I could have sworn the fellow had been recently fired. Maybe I was wrong, though. Wouldn't be the first time, as the missus always points out. Don't yes sir me, just do your job. And sure enough, it was him, or at least his chest, as I crashed right into him turning the corner. What the... Thomas backed off, sputtering. Sorry about that, Thomas, I said, casually brushing myself off. Bumping into folks happened sometimes. Wally, you're here late, replied Thomas, glancing over his shoulder and not really making eye contact. I rarely got eye contact from folks. I didn't mind it. I didn't want to get in the way. My job was to make the way easier, not harder, after all. Not really, I replied. Didn't much think he'd want conversation, but he didn't walk away, so I did my best. Come up with a question then, Wally. That ain't a hard thing to do. You're back on the payroll, then? What? Asked Thomas. The man seemed distracted. Your job. Got your job back. Mr. Drew hired you again? Well, he had no choice, replied Thomas, still thinking about something else. He laughed then. We both had no choice. I nodded. I didn't understand what he meant. After all, we all have choices. But folks like when you nod, sets them at ease. Thomas turned then and began to walk off into the dark blackness of the hallway. Now, I always liked the dark, felt like a cozy blanket to wrap myself in, even though I knew others sounded scary and such. I never understood that either. Ain't nothing in the dark that isn't there in the light. Most of the time. You moving that machine, then? I asked Thomas's back. I'd just remembered about that now and felt like asking. The man stopped walking. He was silhouetted by the last light dangling overhead before everything got drowned in darkness. His shoulders rose, fists clenched. Now, there was a man with some anger in him, I observed. Yep, some mighty fine anger. Machine? That large machine, the one that makes a mess of ink everywhere. Didn't mind cleaning up.